Have you ever found yourself wondering why he never chooses you fully? Not out loud, not in words, but in quiet moments when you're lying in bed after he stops texting back, when he pulls away again after pulling you close, when he says he cares, but somehow it never turns into commitment. You sit there, replaying everything, trying to find the moment it changed, when it slipped from certainty to doubt. You feel it in your stomach before your mind admits it. The slow drop, like falling, like fading, that feeling, that quiet ache that asks, am I just an option to him? Yes, love, you are. And I say that not to break you, but to finally free you. Because if you feel like an option, it's because, on some level, you are being treated like one. No matter how gently he phrases it, no matter how many sweet nothings he breathes into your neck before disappearing again, the truth doesn't lie in the words he says. It lives in the spaces where he fails to show up. And the cruelest part, you already know this. You've known for a while. It's not about clarity. It's about courage. The courage to accept what your soul keeps whispering every time you silence your needs to preserve the fantasy. The courage to admit that love shouldn't feel like begging for a seat at a table that was never set for you. Because here is what no one tells us. Being an option doesn't always come with cruelty or betrayal. Sometimes it looks like charm, like warmth. Like someone who wants just enough of you to keep the emptiness away, but not enough to build something real. Someone who doesn't want to lose you, but doesn't want to choose you either. And so they hover. Half in, half out, leaving you in limbo. That limbo, that subtle emotional starvation, is what slowly wears you down. It's not loud or dramatic, it's quiet, subtle, but it drains your light all the same. You tell yourself you're being patient, that maybe he just needs time, that he's been hurt, that you can be the one who shows him it's safe to love again. But here's the hard truth: you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance, playing the part of the woman who's okay with less, hoping it will eventually become more. But love doesn't grow in conditions of almost. You cannot build a life on a maybe. You cannot plant your heart in someone who doesn't know whether they want to water it. And deep down, you know this. You know it in the way you check your phone and feel that sting of silence. You know it when he shows up only when it's convenient. You know it in the way your spirit tenses when he gives affection, knowing it might vanish tomorrow. That knowing, that tension, it is your intuition. It is your body screaming what your mind is too afraid to accept. And it's time you listen to her. Because here is the most important thing I will say to Yug. When a man sees your worth, you won't have to audition for the role in his life. You will not have to shrink. You will not have to wait. You will not have to prove. You will simply be, and he will know. But you cannot be seen clearly by someone who benefits from your confusion. And you cannot rise into your fullness while tethered to someone who only wants a fraction of you. So what do? When you realize you're being treated like an option, you stop treating yourself like one. You stop accepting the bare minimum as proof of love. You stop mistaking attention for affection. You stop translating inconsistency as a sign of depth. You begin by grieving, because walking away from someone you wanted to believe in, someone you imagined a future with, is a kind of death, not of your worth, but of your hope. It deserves space. Let the H have its moment. But then you rise. You remember that you do not need to be chosen to be valuable. You remember that your presence is a gift, and not everyone has the capacity to receive it. You remember that love isn't about convincing someone to want you. It's about connecting with someone who already does. And most importantly, you remember who were before you let uncertainty define your worth. This is not about blaming him. This is about reclaiming you. It's about waking up from the spell of almost love and remembering what real love feels like. Real love is clear. Real love is consistent. Real love does not make you question whether you matter. You have outgrown the hunger to be tolerated. Now it's time to be treasured. Let that be the standard you hold. Because the moment you choose to no longer be an option, you become a woman who knows her value. And that is the woman he will never be able to forget, even if he never deserved her. Sometimes the most painful truths are the ones that also hold our liberation. You see, being treated like an option chips away at you slowly. It doesn't hurt all at once. It's a kind of erosion. You lose yourself in tiny, almost invisible ways. You stop asking for what you need. You stop expecting consistency. You start redefining what love looks like, just to make sense of his chaos. You settle into the silence he leaves behind, convincing yourself it's not as loud as it feels. That's what being an option does. It teaches you how to dim your own light, so it doesn't blind someone who was never ready for your brilliance. But the part no one talks about, it's not really about him. It never was. It's about the places in you that allowed this to go on for so long. The places still learning what love isn't. The echoes of past wounds that taught you to confuse emotional unavailability with depth, that trained you to see silence as mystery, when really, it was absence. That made you think waiting was noble, when really, it was self-abandonment. We all have those places. And this is not about shame. This is about awakening. It's about seeing that the pain didn't start with him. He just touched the bruise. You're not broken for loving someone who couldn't meet you. You're not weak for hoping he would. You're human. You're beautifully, vulnerably human. And your capacity to love is not the problem. The problem is where you've directed that love. So what do you do now? You redirect it. You take all the care, all the softness, all the patience you gave to someone else, and you begin giving it to yourself. You stop chasing clarity from someone who only benefits from your confusion. You stop analyzing texts and trying to decode half-efforts. You stop making excuses for someone who never really tried. Instead, you come home to yourself. You start listening to the voice you kept silencing, the one that said, "I deserve more." You take walks with her. You sit in silence with her. You ask her what she needs. And then you give it. Because here's the quiet truth. You were never hard to love. You were just trying to be loved by someone who didn't know how. And that is not your burden to carry. Healing doesn't mean you stop loving him. It means you stop betraying yourself for the illusion of love. It means you stop measuring your worth by his ability to see it. Let that sink in. Your worth is not up for negotiation. Your value does not decrease because someone couldn't hold it. You are not a second choice just because someone treated you like one. You are not the problem. You are the answer you've been waiting for. So start showing up for yourself like you always hoped he would. Speak kindly to your reflection. Hold space for your sadness. Set boundaries not as punishment, but as protection. And slowly, you will rebuild the parts of you that forgot how to believe. You will learn, again, how to recognize love that feels like home, not like a test. You will start to attract the kind of people who feel like sunlight, not shadow. But first, you must close the door to the almosts. Because almosts keep you stuck. They feed on your hope, but offer no nourishment in return. They distract you from the love that is actually meant for you. And I know it hurts. I know it's hard. But I promise you, the pain of letting go is nothing compared to the ache of staying where you're only tolerated. And if no one has told you yet, let me be the one. The moment you stop allowing someone to treat you like an option is the moment your real life begins. Because being an option in someone else's life means you've abandoned your role as the leading woman in your own. We do this without realizing it. We fall for potential, for chemistry, for that electric spark that dances between bodies but forgets to build foundations. We confuse moments of intimacy for proof of commitment. We believe that if we are good enough, quiet enough, patient enough, he will finally wake up and see But love that asks you to erase yourself isn't love. It's erasure. And what you erase for him now, you'll have to rebuild later, for yourself. It's time to take the pieces of yourself that you handed away in desperation and hold them close again. You do not have to perform to be loved. You do not have to twist into smaller shapes to fit someone else's limited vision. You only need to return to your wholeness. The kind of love you long for begins with that return. When you look in the mirror and decide, I am no longer available for anything less than reciprocity. I am no longer keeping the door cracked open for someone who only walks in when it benefits them. And this isn't about bitterness. This isn't about revenge. This is about reclaiming your peace. The peace that comes from no longer chasing someone who doesn't see you. The peace that blooms when you stop hoping someone will change and start changing the story you've been telling yourself. Because there is a woman inside you who remembers. She remembers what it felt like to laugh without wondering if it was too much. She remembers being desired, not occasionally, not secretly, but openly, proudly, fully. She remembers the girl who didn't measure her worth by someone else's ability to love her. She's still there. And she's waiting. Waiting for you to stop settling. Waiting for you to come back. Because here's the secret no one tells you. When you finally choose yourself, the world rearranges itself around your worth. The people who once took you for granted begin to feel your absence. The energy you used to pour into empty cups begins to nourish you instead. The boundaries you once feared would scare people away begin to attract the ones who were always meant to stay. You stop being an option the moment you realize you were the prize all along. And the man who couldn't choose you, that was never about you. That was about his limitations, his fears, his inability to receive the love you offered so freely. Some people don't want love. They want attention. They want possession. They want safety without vulnerability. But you want the real thing. You want devotion, not confusion. Depth, not performance. You want to be held, not just touched. You want to be known, not just looked at. And you deserve all of that. Not because you're perfect. Not because you did everything right. But because you are you, and that is enough. So what happens now? Now you rise. You get quiet, but not because you're waiting to be contacted. You get quiet because you're listening to yourself again. You stop scrolling through memories. You stop rereading old texts. You stop hoping he'll wake up one day and finally see you. Because you've finally decided to see yourself. You start showing up for yourself in small, sacred ways. A walk in the evening light. A boundary you hold firm. A goodbye you finally say, not in anger, but in truth. You start remembering that self-respect isn't about pride. It's about alignment. And you no longer have the energy to be out of alignment with your own soul. You let go. Not because it didn't matter. Not because it didn't hurt. But because it hurt too much to stay in a space that asked you to forget who you are. You walk away, not to prove anything, but to preserve everything you've reclaimed. And as you do, you open space. Space for healing, for joy, for the kind of love that doesn't ask you to wonder. The kind of love that looks you in the eyes and says, I choose you, in public and in private. But even more than that, you open space for you. For the woman who is no longer afraid of being alone, because she has learned that alone is not the same as lonely. Alone is clarity. Alone is power. Alone is the sacred beginning of self-trust. You've waited long enough for someone else to choose you. Now it's your turn. Choose yourself when the texts stop. Choose yourself when he comes back with apologies and no action. Choose yourself when the silence hurts. Choose yourself when you want to reach out. Choose yourself again and again until it becomes your way of life. Because a woman who chooses herself becomes unforgettable. Not because of what she does for others, but because of the standard she sets for her own heart. Let this be your turning point. The day you stopped making room for almosts. The day you stopped dimming your light. The day you stopped explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Let this be the day you said, I am no longer an option. I am the choice. And I will no longer wait to be seen by someone who doesn't even have the eyes to recognize my worth. You are not here to be tolerated. You are not here to convince someone of your value. You are not here to love quietly in the background, hoping to be noticed. You are here to be loved out loud. So from this moment forward, let that be the only kind of love you make space for. And when the ache returns, as it sometimes will, when the memories flicker like ghosts of a life that almost was, remember this. You walked away because you finally believed you deserved more. And that, my dear, is the beginning of everything beautiful